Gunfire, smoke grenades, vehicles charging law enforcement. The scene in Minnesota looks like a war zone. Leftists are assaulting ICE agents, storming churches, threatening journalists, and ripping conservatives out of cars, all in one of the most frigid winters imaginable. While CNN and MSNBC are treating ICE's presence as a fascist takeover that every progressive foot soldier should travel to fight, they're also increasingly frustrated that no one seems to really care. The left might be engaged in its own miniature insurrection, but the rest of America isn't at war. The rest of America is watching football. The summer of 2020 was truly a wonder to behold. After the entire country was locked down for months on end, tensions were boiling over. The media had been steadily bombarding their captive viewers with different stories of police brutality against black people, the most sacred of all victims, hoping that one spark would eventually trigger a wildfire. It did take them a while, but once riots started, they spread to different cities very quickly. Teachers had their students write essays about George Floyd, while churches baptized in his name. Statues were built, murals were painted, and companies donated millions to Black Lives Matter, even as rioters looted and burned down their stores. It was a truly religious movement supported by every major power center in the nation, justifying outrageous violence and property damage, while news organizations glorified the entire spectacle. Not since the 1960s has America been gripped by such a fervent, spiritual devotion to revolutionary politics. Now, Trump is back in office and the left is desperately trying to recreate the magic, but leftists just can't seem to get it done. ICE has started deporting the worst illegal alien criminals. In most states, the operation is going smoothly. Some blue states have decided, though, that they're just not going to work with ICE, forcing the agents to retrieve the illegals themselves, often in a very hostile environment without the aid of local law enforcement. Minnesota has been a hotbed of domestic unrest, so it's no surprise that that's the state which has also seen the most conflict with these ICE raids. It isn't just that Minnesota refuses to cooperate with federal immigration officials. The entire state political apparatus is involved in a conspiracy to foment violence. Government officials, including the lieutenant governor, have been caught in a group chat working to coordinate the revolution. Teachers' unions and school boards collaborate to suspend school just so that the educators and students can join in the street protests and riots. Judges refuse to sign arrest warrants for obvious crimes because they agree with the perpetrators. Minnesota is an open insurrection. There really is no other word for it. Despite the incredible level of subversive coordination occurring in Minnesota, events have failed to capture the popular imagination like they did during the Summer of Love. Some have blamed the winter, claiming that it's simply too cold for leftists to maintain an overwhelming presence in the streets. Others have pointed to the lack of lockdowns or other simmering psychological factor increasing political tensions. The most likely explanation centers around the cause itself. Black criminals have gained an almost sacred status on the left, making them a far more animating cause, especially for the black community at large. I'm sorry, but there's just no way that black activists are showing up to die for white lesbians who get themselves shot standing up for child molesting illegal aliens from Venezuela. Without the sacred victims, it's difficult for leftists to get their most violent foot soldiers in the streets or to get corporations to sign on and push the agenda. Whatever the true explanation, the consequences are obvious. The revolution isn't spreading, and most Americans just don't care. If you're someone who follows the news obsessively, it's easy to overestimate the impact that events in Minnesota are having on the country. It's not that what is happening between ICE and violent leftists isn't serious or that it doesn't matter. It is, but most Americans are barely paying attention. Most states are coordinating with ICE and deportations are entirely positive there, making very little noise. The average guy might catch an online video or headline and shake his head, but he goes right back to wondering if the Patriots are going to win another Super Bowl this year. Progressive activists are posting on social media complaining about how most of the country just doesn't care about what they're doing. The revolution is contained, and the leftist insurgency is becoming demoralized. Tim Walz has now agreed to involve local law enforcement if ICE reduces its direct presence in the operation. Some disgruntled right-wingers have described this as capitulation by the Trump administration, but that simply isn't the case. The goal was always to use ICE as a supplementary force in conjunction with local agencies. Anything else is just inviting long-term chaos. The initial refusal of law enforcement to cooperate created a city under siege mentality. That was the whole point. Progressives could sell the image of faceless authoritarians surging into their hometown and then justify all kinds of ruthless tactics. Now that local police are handling the riot control, they own the situation. It's a lot easier to demonize and attack a faceless federal agent. Now the protesters are assaulting their friends, family members, and neighbors. Activists have already started to surround Tim Walz's house due to their outrage. Once revolutionary energy is redirected towards their own leaders, the movement, it's not long for this world. Now, many GOP commentators and politicians have decided that this is the time to defect, calling for ICE to withdraw and abandon operations in Minnesota, which is, obviously a huge mistake. The progressives are outraged that their government allies have wavered, and they're demoralized because their revolution has been contained. The worst possible move would be to rip defeat from the jaws of victory because a few MSNBC segments started to make the donor class squeamish. Now is not the time to give up. Now is not the time to bail out and run away. Now is not the time to shriek because somewhere someone on the internet called you mean, and the most important thing in the world is that the New York Times or CNN loves you. That is not where we are. Now is the time to break the insurgency and continue nationwide operations without hesitation. Americans are more interested in whether the Seahawks can pull this one off than they are about spreading the Marxist open borders gospel. If conservative politicians and commentators can control their impulse to surrender like spineless cowards for just a few more weeks, guys, just a few more weeks, the moment will pass and immigration law will be enforced. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is a great time to do so. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcast, make sure that you subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. When you do, leave a rating or a review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. You want to get me something for the new year? That's what I would appreciate the most. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter or Gab or Substack or Instagram, if you'd like to watch these videos on Rumble or Odyssey, the links to do all of that are down below in the description. And of course, you can watch all of my shows and read all of my columns over at The Blaze. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.